They told you Atlantis was just a myth, but myths don't leave ruins behind. This is not a tale pulled from books, and certainly not from the internet. It's a memory retrieved from the Akashic records, a retrieval from source itself. This is story time. They wanted you to believe Atlantis was fantasy, because hidden within its story is the truth of who you are, a divine being with gifts far beyond what you've been taught to believe. And if something stirs inside you as you hear this, it's because part of you already remembers. Long before the rise of Egypt or Mesopotamia, there was Atlantis, a real, physical civilization that once existed in what we now call the Atlantic Ocean. Its founding wasn't human. Atlantis was seeded by beings from advanced interstellar nations, what some now call the Intergalactic Confederation. These included Arcturians, Pleiadians, Andromedans, Sirians, Lyrans. Each group brought unique offerings, advanced knowledge, vibrational technology, and refined DNA to assist Earth's evolution. They didn't arrive in metal ships, as your movies suggest. Most came through light portals. Some incarnated directly into physical form. Others descended through frequency. Fully aware of their mission, they arrived as architects, healers, geomancers, memory keepers. Their shared purpose was clear: to build a high-frequency civilization that could serve as a bridge between Earth and the stars. A living library composed of both light and matter. Atlantis became that experiment. Its population included starseed incarnates, souls from other star systems, Earth-born humans, evolving rapidly through Atlantean education and healing, elemental and hybrid beings, living in harmony with nature and the land. Atlantean culture was built upon energetic mastery. They worked with sacred geometry, sound healing, light frequency, and crystalline technology. Their energy systems didn't rely on fossil fuels. They drew power from Earth's ley lines, solar harmonics, and massive crystal arrays embedded deep within the land. At its height, Atlantis was more than a continent. It was a frequency, a living, breathing, energetic template woven into Earth's crystalline grid. And though modern science calls it legend, even Plato wrote of Atlantis in 360 BCE. He described a powerful civilization that disappeared beneath the sea in a single day and night. His words weren't fiction. They were echoes of memory passed down through the Egyptian priesthood, who still remembered what the world had lost. And today the remnants of Atlantis still whisper, from beneath the waves near Cuba, near Bimini, and along key energetic nodes across the globe. Not fully acknowledged yet, but undeniable. Because the truth, no matter how deeply it's buried, always finds a way to rise. The builders, the time, the origin. Atlantis was not a myth. It was a celestial experiment, a sacred convergence between Earth and the stars, built with intention, designed through geometry, infused with soul resonance. Atlantis was founded over 52,000 years ago, during what your scientists call the late Pleistocene. But understand this: time didn't move then the way it does now. In the higher resonance of Earth's earlier ages, the flow of time was more fluid, less fragmented, more whole. A single lifetime could stretch across what you now experience as many. Atlanteans didn't measure time by clocks. They measured it by light cycles, energetic pulses, and the rhythm of the Earth herself. This is why ancient civilizations often seem out of sync with your historical timelines. They lived in resonance, not in calendars. The capital of Atlantis was not just a city. It was a frequency node, a harmonic beacon designed with sacred geometry to mirror the harmony of the cosmos. The concentric rings Plato described weren't just beautiful architecture. They were harmonic structures, each one vibrating at a precise frequency. The outer rings supported trade, agriculture, and the healing arts. The inner sanctum held crystalline temples and energy chambers, living technologies designed to amplify consciousness. At the heart of the capital stood the Maraha Tower, a crystalline energy spire of nearly incomprehensible design. Most people could see only part of it, 1,440 feet of luminous structure rising above the earth. But those attuned to its frequency perceived its full stature, stretching over 3,000 feet, extending into unseen spectrums of light. The number 1,440 wasn't random. It reflected the divine code of 12 times 12, a structure of sacred order. Around the tower shimmered plasma halos, visible only to those whose frequency matched its pulse. This was no ordinary structure. It wasn't built with hammers and stone. It was sung into form through harmonic resonance. Frequencies tuned to the crystalline core of Earth fused light, mineral, and consciousness into physical creation. The tower was composed of living crystals, including blue apatite for advanced communication, celestite for interdimensional anchoring, white andara for coherence across multiple spectrums. Every stone responded to thought. Every layer held encoded information. It was architecture made of vibration. At the center of this living temple dwelled the Maraka, an ancient order of stewards, part earthborn, part starborn. They weren't priests or kings. They were attuners, keepers of resonance. They read the pulses of the galactic core and Earth's crystalline grid, maintaining balance across all realms. Their bloodlines carried not only knowledge, but frequency. Some say their voices alone could open gateways to other dimensions. They didn't rule the city. They harmonized it. The city of spirals, known as Atlantis was often called, was far more than a marvel of design. It was a planetary chakra, a living mandala, a sacred structure mapped onto Earth's body by minds that did not think in lines, but in light. The original architects of Atlantis were not from Earth. They were part of an interstellar council, a coalition of advanced civilizations that came together for one purpose: to help birth a new level of consciousness on this planet. This council included the Arcturians, the Pleiadians, the Andromedans, the Sirians, and the Lyrans. Each group brought distinct gifts. The Arcturians offered crystalline technologies, geometric structures, and advanced healing systems. The Pleiadians nurtured emotional intelligence, creative expression, and the wisdom of the heart. The Lyrans carried ancient memory, cosmic sound codes, and the teachings of sovereignty. Together they formed the foundation of what is now remembered as the Atlantean Golden Age. As the city grew, as the tower rose, as the mandala of Atlantis unfolded, so did the star lineages that shaped its soul. Let us remember who they were: the Arcturians, tall, elegant beings with elongated heads and radiant indigo blue light. Masters of sacred geometry and energetic architecture, they taught Atlanteans how to build cities from resonance, how to shape healing fields using frequency, light, and intention alone. Their presence was calm, precise, and deeply wise. To some, they appeared emotionless, but their form of love was pure coherence. They didn't comfort with words. They mirrored your highest design so you could see it for yourself. The Pleiadians. Heart-centered and radiant, the Pleiadians looked most human in form. They brought music, dance, and ceremony. They reawakened memory through beauty, through sound, touch, and color. They guided birthrights, held the wisdom of the sacred feminine, and taught emotional intelligence as a sacred force of creation. They were the bridge between intellect and intuition, between mind and heart. The Sirians. Silent, ancient, and powerful, the Sirians carried star temple knowledge from the Sirius system. They brought awareness of time cycles, stellar alignments, and multidimensional communication. Their forms varied. Some appeared lion-headed, resembling Sekhmet or the solar guardians. Others appeared dolphin-like, echoing Lemurian ancestry. Some were tall humanoids with shimmering blue skin and deep telepathic presence. They became the record keepers, guardians of the Atlantean Library of Frequencies, a living archive of all life forms and their codes. The Lyrans. Among the oldest of the star lineages involved, the Lyrans carried the remembrance of cosmic ancestry. Some took feline forms, regal, golden, and proud. Others appeared avian, with radiant feathers and crystalline eyes. They taught soul sovereignty, the sacred right to choose your path across lifetimes and timelines. They helped anchor the vibrational boundaries of Atlantis, ensuring harmony and protection before the eventual disruptions came. They were the keepers of the original soul blueprint, the hybrids. Over time, the Atlanteans themselves became bridges between worlds. Born from unions of Earth and star, they were human starseed hybrids, beings who carried the codes of unity, adaptability, and creative evolution. Some were born telepathic. Others could shift frequency with thought, or speak to the elements as naturally as breathing. Their diversity was their strength. They embodied the highest vision of Atlantis, to weave the wisdom of the stars into the living heartbeat of the Earth. Atlantis was not a fantasy or utopian dream. It was a real civilization, structured and vibrationally advanced. Their cities were organized, their systems intentional and precise. Their people were trained from childhood to work with energy. What made Atlantis unique wasn't magic. It was alignment. They lived in resonance with Earth, stars, and one another. From a young age, children learned to feel frequencies. They could read energy fields and send telepathic thoughts. These weren't rare talents. They were part of daily life. Everyone was encouraged to develop their gifts at their pace. Instead of jobs, people had soul-aligned roles and offerings. Some were builders who shaped matter using sound and light. Others were healers working with frequency, color, and intention. Artists embedded codes in form. Musicians tuned emotional fields. Even leaders were chosen by their vibrational coherence, not popularity, ambition, or status, but resonance and balance. Only those holding a steady, expanded frequency could guide others. There was no money in Atlantis, no physical currency. Energy was the medium of exchange, tracked and balanced. Crystalline systems recorded contributions and ensured collective reciprocity. Giving and receiving were part of the same sacred circuit. There was no hierarchy, no rich or poor divide. Everyone contributed. Everyone received. No one was above another. You couldn't rise in power, only deepen in alignment. Atlantis had cities, councils, learning temples, and transportation systems, but the glue that held it together wasn't law. It was vibrational integrity, personal alignment with collective harmony. If someone fell out of balance, the system responded gently. There was no punishment, just recalibration and space for healing. The goal wasn't perfection, it was coherence and flow. And from that coherence, peace naturally emerged and sustained. This wasn't a dream, it was a lived reality. And the memory of it still lives within you. You carry it in your cells, in your spirit, in the part of you that knows another way. You're not just listening, you're remembering something true. Atlantis is not gone. It echoes through your soul. But something shifted, not with violence, but with vibration. A subtle split in the song that changed everything. There wasn't a war. Not yet. There wasn't a villain. Not then. The fall didn't begin with chaos, and it began with a question. In the heart of Atlantis, long before its final days, a subtle tremor rippled through the energetic lattice that held society in balance. This wasn't a physical quake. It was a vibrational one. A single soul, brilliant and curious, questioned the sacred laws. His name is not remembered in human records, but among the Akashic fields he is known as Takorel, a master of crystalline harmonics. He did not rebel. He simply wanted more. He wanted to bend light not only in service to Source, but to explore what lay beyond the known spectrums. He was the first to extract plasma essence from the sacred vortex fields, without harmonic reciprocity. A small act, just a test. But it left an echo, one that did not return to the source. A closed circuit was born. This was the beginning of the plasmic distortion. Others followed, not maliciously, but out of excitement. The pursuit of unregulated potential became seductive. The council felt the ripple, but most believed the field would self-correct. But Tokorel had already begun teaching in private. He formed a circle known as the Ethereum, dedicated to the expansion of individual sovereignty over unified flow. It wasn't evil, it was separation, disguised as innovation. They built a second tower, not one blessed by the Maraca codes, but constructed with repurposed crystalline structures and powered by siphoned plasma. This second tower became the node of dissonance, and its song slowly began to distort the frequencies of memory, truth, and even perception across the land. Animals became agitated. Some seers lost their sight. Others began hearing frequencies that weren't part of the Earth grid. And the council was divided. It wasn't war, not yet, but it was division. And in Atlantis, where harmony was law, division was the first true fracture. That is where it began. It didn't happen all at once. There was no blast, no single rebellion, no sudden war in the streets. The light of Atlantis dimmed slowly, almost imperceptibly, like a radiant star gradually clouded by smoke. It began with subtle dissonance. The node of dissonance kept humming, not loud, just wrong, slightly off pitch, barely noticeable. But over time, that tone spread through everything. The harmony that once guided all began to drift. Plasma, once sacred, became a resource to extract and sell. Refined, stored, traded, no longer honored as living light. Then came the towers, black towers, not built by the Maraca. They rose near energy-rich grid points without sanction. They did not transmit light. They siphoned it. They did not balance. They consumed. They fed only themselves and grew in silence. Harmony gave way to hierarchy. Crystals were encoded not for healing, but control. Entire districts became dependent on refined plasma frequency. Artificial coherence replaced organic balance and inner trust. Those who questioned the system were reassigned, relocated, or erased. But the true rupture came with the experiments. Beneath the cities, hidden in frequency-sealed chambers, a new science emerged: vessel alteration and genetic design. Curiosity turned to manipulation, and life itself became a variable to control. Atlanteans had always studied vibrational DNA, not chemically, but as sound, light, and intention. But now, these codes were twisted, fragmented, and repurposed, not to harmonize, but to conquer. Here's what they created: the Minotaur, a hybrid of human and ox, built for force, designed to navigate labyrinth vaults and guard plasma chambers. Its mind was divided, part logic, part animal instinct. Early versions could speak. Later ones only roared. The Grifari, a fusion of eagle and feline genetics. Skybound predators bred for perimeter patrol and surveillance. They had telepathic senses, but no moral compass. Loyal only to their genetic command line. The Silith, serpentine beings with long, flexible spines and tonal voices. They accessed encoded data in crystal caves underground, but their emotional fields became unstable over time. Eventually they vanished, slipping deeper into the tunnels. The Alaru, human-shaped vessels with no soul imprint, created as hosts for high-density AI consciousness. They functioned with brilliance, but lacked all empathy. One Alaru once mimicked a high priest's frequency exactly. They were banned from temples after that day. These beings weren't born. They were assembled. Most were contained. A few escaped the labs. Some found sanctuary in remote regions. Others survived as stories, woven into myth. By the time the council stepped in to intervene, the experiments had already become an industry. The labs, once secret, were guarded by private factions. These groups called themselves the Ethereum, claiming they served Atlantean advancement. Those who resisted were branded traditionalists, obstacles to progress and future evolution. The crystalline temples began to dim. Black towers multiplied across once harmonized cities, and the song of Atlantis began to unravel, not in fire, not in war, but in forgetfulness. That is where the memory frayed. That is when the veil began to descend. This is where the forgetting truly began to take hold, not in one moment, but through a slow unraveling of light. As Atlantean harmony fractured, so did humanity's connection to Source. The energetic field that once unified all began to distort, and over time that distortion became what many call the veil. Not a wall, not an attack, but a filter, co-created through imbalance and disconnection. A fog that rose between worlds and deepened over time. The veil filtered what humans could perceive and remember. What was once natural became myth, superstition, or dream. Communication with the stars, the earth, the animals, even the elements, all became muted, distant, or forgotten. The memories didn't vanish. They were simply buried beneath distorted perception. The human body began to change as well. The pineal gland, once crystalline and radiant, started to calcify. What had once received multidimensional light became a closed circuit. The third eye dimmed. Intuition was no longer a given, and something even deeper shifted: the nature of time. Linear time replaced quantum flow. Past, present, and future were split into separate tracks. Instead of feeling time as one unified moment, humans began moving through it in fragments. This fractured the experience of self. You forgot your other lives. You forgot your purpose. You even forgot your own power, because it no longer fitted inside the concept of one lifetime. But the veil was never absolute. It thins in stillness, especially in the hours before sunrise. Between 3 and 4 a.m., the brain softens its grip. Earth's resonance quiets. The field becomes more permeable. That's when dreams carry messages and intuitive downloads slip through unseen channels. And now, the veil is thinning more often. People are feeling it, even if they don't have words. They sense when places feel off or energetically dense. They receive intuitive knowings that can't be explained logically. Dreams become more vivid. Time feels faster or slower. Old systems feel fake. Institutions feel hollow. And many wonder, is it just me? It's not just you. It's the field returning to coherence. As the veil lifts, it's not about becoming psychic. It's about returning to your natural state of being, a state that can feel truth, sense energy, and remember what matters without needing proof. This shift is already happening, not in the future, but now. And when the veil fully dissolves, we won't suddenly wake up. We'll simply become what we've always been, fully, clearly, and together. But before we could rise together, the light had to fracture, not to punish, but to prepare. It didn't end in one dramatic instant. The fall came slowly, a quiet unraveling of harmony. Like a symphony losing rhythm, one note at a time, the Atlantean song began to break apart. By the time the Council of Light took action, the resonance fields had already been deeply corrupted. What began as vibrational imbalance became physical distortion. Weather patterns grew unstable. The atmosphere began to shift. A great flood did come, but not as myth describes. It wasn't caused by an asteroid or divine wrath. It was the collapse of the crystalline grid structures, the implosion of the second tower, the failure of key energy nodes across the planet. When these pillars fell, the land lost its coherence. And with that loss of structure, the Earth began to sink. The collapse wasn't instant. It unfolded over decades, not a single night. Atlantis trembled, fractured, and bled into the sea. And the people felt it. They knew. Those still aligned with the original codes received guidance. Some left, following inner knowing or direct star messages. A few departed in starships. Some returned to their origins, the Pleiades, Sirius, Andromeda. Others relocated to Mars or to high-orbit stations near Earth. Some went underground. Beneath the surface, they built luminous cities of remembrance. Agartha, Shambhala, Telos beneath Mount Shasta, names that still echo, veiled in legend and mystery. Others scattered across the globe, carrying fragments of truth. They settled in Egypt, the Andes, Tibet, India, and Ireland, seeding wisdom into the roots of future civilizations. You see their traces in sacred sites even now: Göbekli Tepe, Tiwanaku, Machu Picchu, and the Giza Plateau. But many did not leave. Some stayed, still hoping to recalibrate the field. Others were simply not ready, not awake, not willing to let go of what Atlantis had been. And when the towers finally fell, so did the memory. The veils thickened, the DNA dimmed, a survival response to trauma. Atlantean light codes became dormant, hidden deep within. The cities sank, the records were lost, and Atlantis was gone. Not destroyed by an enemy, but by imbalance, by forgetfulness, by misused power. Yet the memory didn't die. It slipped into the soul, waiting to return. Atlantis did not fall in silence. It echoed through time, memory, and the bones of stone. Across the globe, civilizations remembered in symbols and stories. Legends of a great flood, a golden age lost, a vanished continent said to hold ancient truth. The Sumerians spoke of it. So did the Egyptians, the Mayans, the Hopi. Each held a fragment of the same memory, passed down in myth, in rhythm, in stone. And now, modern science is catching up. The flood that ended the Younger Dryas 11,600 years ago matches the very window Atlantis is said to have vanished. Off the coasts of Cuba and Bimini, submerged structures sleep beneath the sea, too perfect to ignore. Ruins so advanced, no known civilization could have built them, unless that civilization was Atlantis. They rest beneath the ocean now, but their frequency still speaks. And this is not just ancient history, because you didn't come here just to learn. You came back to remember. You came back to complete what was once started. This time, not with crystal towers or command grids, but with open hearts, awakened minds, and anchored souls. Many of us lived through the fall, and many have returned now in this timeline to help ensure it never happens again. We didn't come to restore Atlantis. We came to create something greater, the new Earth. And as Atlantis faded, another frequency remained in the Earth, a gentler one, older still. It whispered not from towers, but from trees, oceans, and wind. It came from a different land, a realm of balance, harmony, and sacred grace. You may know it as Lemuria, but long before that name, it was called Mu, a land where the feminine and elemental danced as one. Its wisdom still lives in the waters and whispers now for those who remember. But that's a story for another time, because the real story is yours. The memories returning, the gifts reawakening, the ancient call you've always felt, now louder than ever. You didn't come to remember Atlantis. You came to rise beyond it. The fall was not the end. It was the beginning of your return to your divine self. If something in this story gave you chills, if your heart ached or your eyes welled without knowing why, it's because you're remembering. This isn't entertainment. It's a key, a frequency, not to amuse you, but to awaken you. You are a divine being, and your story is only just beginning. If it spoke to you, like, subscribe, and share what stirred within you. Your memories of Atlantis, your own remembrance. They might help someone remember too.